Hello, everybody. Apologies for the initial quirk there. Teams as it is. As Nathan said, I'm Janice Ansine from Senior Project Manager for Citizen Science, and I'm happy to talk to you today about iSpot. So I'll be doing this with Mike Dodd, my colleague. So we're going to go through the slides, and then we can have some discussions. Right. So iSpot is a citizen science platform that was Oops, no, my slides are not good day. Sorry. It's a citizen science platform that was developed and led by the Open University some years ago. But one of the key things we wanted to start with is just to have a little bit of discussion about what is citizen science. Now, citizen science has been going on for a number of years. It's not the beginning. They even say Charles Darwin was one of the early citizen scientists, but it became more popularized with more activity that relates to research and how we can get volunteers and anybody else involved in research linked with professional scientists. And the definition actually went into the Oxford English Dictionary around 2014, and it has evolved as a massive area of practice that we've been involved with here at the OU. Now, the interesting thing for this session is that we're looking at it in the context of open research, and open research offers a wide space for citizen science, and the synergy that comes here is while open science, open research through open science is about how science is done and shared. Citizen science is about how people can participate and how they can do science. And that's what makes it so exciting for this synergy. And we're going to talk about how iSpot displays this in different ways. So some of the connections I want to establish here are around citizen science links with open research, teaching, learning, and engagement. And at the OU, we know what the OU is, we know what the OU does. We focus on global reach, higher education. We're known for that. And one of the things that has happened over the years is that citizen science has been integrated through what we do in terms of the emerging technologies and so on, and particularly in STEM, where we are based. So in terms of the research area, it's wide ranging. We do biological recording in our context, monitoring, classifying, and collecting and analyzing data. Technologies for citizen observatories, so building in new things like AI, for example. Citizen inquiry, which is research around how people get involved and what they do to a certain degree. And importantly, in terms of our core business, is what it contributes to teaching and learning. And iSpot is quite bespoke to that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. The other link we have with citizen science at the OU is how it connects with practical science. And for example, iSpot was integrated quite early on in the Open Science Lab when it was started developing. And also what citizen science can actually do in field work in terms of getting people outdoors and helping them to build their skill sets. On the other side of things, there's engagement and outreach. And citizen science is an amazing tool to facilitate this in terms of getting people involved in different ways, but giving them that hands-on approach, or in terms of outreach, reaching them through the different collaborations we do with the BBC, as well as through regular media and comms. So a little bit of a snapshot of the early days at the OU and how before the use of the term citizen science, so to speak, the OU involves students in this type of research that brings in that component of students going out there collecting data and this feeding into research. And this is a snapshot of something that was done in the 1970s to get students to collect data, pollution data around sulfur dioxide. And this was actually linked with an early module. So where are we now? That was the 1970s. Where are we now? We have iSpot, and iSpot was developed. The start of iSpot was around 2007 when we got this fantastic pot of funding from the Big Lottery Fund under an OPAL wider initiative, which that initiative actually ran from 2007 to 2019, which was basically a lot of money, like over 12 million pounds, to get people engaged in exploring nature. So that was fantastic. And one of the key things we had at the OU was to create iSpot. And the thing about iSpot is it was basically an online space where we could actually have people sharing nature. We wanted to do a little bit more. We knew that people were interested in nature. We knew from our experience with the BBC programs and so on. So iSpot was developed to sort of move people off the sofa to get outdoors. So what are the aims? To lower barriers to identification, to build identification skills, to make nature accessible, to support a new generation of naturalists, because of course there is a situation where some people, the people in this area are quite old, they want to get young people out there doing more, and to contribute to biological data recording. We wanted something that was free and easy to use with integrated features and tools, build an online community of not just experts but also novices, those who just want to learn something and want to do more. And the key thing was we wanted a technology that people could upload an observation, a photo, and have the community gather together to identify it. So it was achieved. We started development when we got the grant in 2007, and we launched to the public in June 2009. And here's some of the snapshots of some of the successes that came out of this. So, for example, one of the early discoveries was by a little 6-year-old girl who found a moth on her windowsill. Her dad knew about iSpot, posted on iSpot. It was a rare moth. It hit the press. It was amazing. And we couldn't have had better press than that at the launch. That happened in October. We launched in June, and iSpot really took off. A year or so after that, we won the Wild Screen Panda Award, which was amazing to win that. And as we developed the platform further and sought further support, we received lovely words from people like Sir David Attenborough about what the power of iSpot can do. So a little bit more about what the platform is. So the key thing about iSpot in terms of how it's evolved, because it has evolved over the years, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the aspects of what we do with data. But before we get to that Mike will talk about, just want to give you a snapshot or whistle stop tour of how the platform works. So the key thing about iSpot, we have sort of these 4 synergies of what you can do with iSpot to help guide people on their journey through using the platform. So you can explore. And you can browse the thousands and thousands of species spotted so far of your observations. You can see the carousels there with the different observations. It's split at the moment in a couple of different communities. So you have global, you have UK and Ireland, and we have Chile, Southern Africa, and Hong Kong. Because these are some collaborations that we had early on. The UK and Ireland community is quite active, and the global space is quite active as well. So what you can do, the key thing is record. You can submit observations, you can try to identify them, or you can work with the community to identify that. And another key thing is identification. And in doing that, we have a number of different tools and resources that can help. So we have species browsers, and we integrate actual species listings from the various repositories across globally and in the UK. A key thing about this is how you build your reputation as you identify. And this is quite important because this is quite unique to iSpot in terms of how you build your reputation in these different areas. We filter into different groups, as you can see the little icons there for the different groups, and then you post an observation and it appears within the platform. You have to register to post, so you join the scene. You can browse and explore, but you have to register to actually post an observation and engage with the community. Other tools include like forums where you can talk with others and share as well. But another key thing for iSpot is the learning that happens. We have tools integrated to facilitate that, where you can collaborate and participate using projects, or you can participate using the iSpot quizzes as well. So this is just some of the things that you can do with iSpot. I'll hand over to Mike.
Okay, so I'm going to look at the aspect of the social network that iSpot is. So in here on the right hand side, we've got a map. So what I'm going to talk about will be illustrated by maps quite a lot. The map shows the dots are observations, and the lines connect those observations to a particular person. In this case is myself, who has interacted with those particular observations which were made by other people. So they're not my observations. So if they're a yellow dot, then I've made comments on those observations. If there are a blue dot, then I've agreed. And if there are a red dot, then I have made the identification myself. So it's showing how I'm interacting with large numbers of people all over the UK, and some of those lines are going into other parts of the world. So it's showing that there's lots of interaction beyond just the UK. Okay, if we move on to the next. And so you can extend that to here I've shown all of the observations and all of the people who have interacted with those observations, but only the identification. So the previous picture was for comments and agreements as well, but these are just identifications. So the blue dots are the observations, and the red lines take those observations to the people who have given the likely identification for those observations. And you can see it's a global system with large numbers in Southern Africa and in Northern Europe. Okay, if we move on to the next one. So I've then this is the same data, but I've split it down by certain groups of organisms. So here we're just looking at fungi and birds, and I'm focusing it in more on the UK. So if you look at the image on the map on the left, this is the fungi, and you can see there are a limited number of nodes there. So the nodes are people. So these are the people who are providing the identifications, and they're providing identifications mainly within the British Isles. There are not many lines going outside of the British Isles. So that's a sort of fairly tightly knit network of people, and there's not very many people providing large numbers of identifications. If you compare that with the birds on the right-hand side, this looks a bit more messy. There are probably more people providing identifications, and the identifications are not just within the British Isles. They are spread out around the globe. So those lines disappear off into other places. So that's indicating both that people from other places are identifying birds in Britain, and people in Britain are identifying birds in other parts of the world. So people seem to think that they can identify birds more globally. That there are not that many birds in the whole planet, and some of the bird watchers have a pretty good idea of what many of them are. Whereas with fungi, those experts tend to like their own country, or are a bit frightened to identify things outside their own area, because there are a huge number of fungi, many times more, hundreds of times more fungi than birds. And once you go outside your local area, then you might be finding something completely different. Okay, if you move on to the next one. So if we're looking at ways to ensure accurate identifications, one of the things is to look at the agreements and who has agreed. So Janice mentioned earlier that one of the things that the likely identification is arrived at by a reputation system, but also we'd also look at agreements. So here, these are the observations in the British Isles, and for each observation, I've shown how many people agree with that observation. So you can see that some I don't have many agreements, or none even. Others have loads of agreements. So you can see that it's quite variable, and this often depends on which group of organisms it is. So if you go on to the next one, we look at that in more detail. So here we are. We've got this is the OU campus, if you can recognize that, just a piece of it. I haven't got a scale on here, but I can tell you that the darker the color, the more reputation those observations have. So each cross is an observation. So the darker color has more reputation. all of these are past a threshold to be likely, but even within that, the darker colours are more likely. If you go on to the next one, I've then chopped the data again. Again, this is the OU campus, by those different groups of organisms. So the amphibians, birds, fish, or whatever. So we can see across the OU campus, we've got a whole range of different things have been identified, so plants and birds, and a whole variety of different things. So I'm now going to bring all that information together. If you go on to the next one, Janice. So here we have two graphs. On the left, this is globally. I've hammered all that data, and I've looked at the average number of agreements for each observation, and divided that by the different groups of organisms. So for birds, we generally have lots of agreements, whereas for fish or fungi, we have rather few agreements. And to me, this suggests that there are not many people who know about fungi, and that they're difficult to identify compared with birds, certainly. The reputation graph is a little bit different. That has plants as being very high, and birds not quite so high. So in its reputation that actually the system uses to give the likely identification. And so it is saying approximately the same thing. But here I'm slightly worried that there are a couple of experts who are incredibly active. One person in invertebrates and one person in plants, or a couple of people in plants. And so they were giving a huge number of identifications. I mean, they knew what they're doing, but that made the reputation higher, the average reputation higher. So it's just showing slightly different aspects of the same kind of thing. Can we move on to the next one? Okay, so we're still looking at the community, and this is looking at other aspects, other things that the community have been doing. So they don't only give they don't only make observations, give identifications, agree, comment, and use the forum. They don't only do all that kind of thing. They also like to help with data cleaning and help with the general improvement of the platform. So they do a whole load of things. They produce projects on different things. And at the moment, one of the people is doing something on habitats. So when you make an observation, you've always been able to note down the habitat, but this person is trying to make sure that people know how to describe the habitat, or how to select the habitat the best way they can. Okay, so if we move on to the next one. So I have plotted the observations broken down by habitat, and I've zoomed in on an area. The background, I've used a Google image, an aerial image, and at the bottom of the picture is the sea, the darker area. This is a piece of Orkney, and the yellow dots here are the marine habitat. So the user has selected marine, and they put the location on, and you can see that the yellow dots are in the sea, so they're right. The green dots in the middle are gardens and parks, and there is a particular user who lives there, and that's their garden, where the green dots are. And behind the green dots there are some black dots, and that's their house, and so they're indoors there. If you look up towards the right hand side, the darker area of the image, that indicates a bit of heathland. And there are some pink dots there, which is matched up with heathland. And there's a line of white dots. And I've actually been here to this particular location. I can tell you that the line of white dots is the track down to the house, and it's basically grassland. It's a grassy track. And there's also a line of brownish dots, which are a small piece of woodland. So it does seem to match up pretty well. But there are occasional dots which don't match up. For example, in the field at the bottom, there's a black dot, and that's not indoors. So obviously that dot is a little bit away from where it should be. So this gives us a way of checking some of the things easily. So we check things a whole variety of ways, and this is one way we can check things. So if you move on to the next one, so this is looking at, we've zoomed out a bit, so and zoom down to the south of the country. This is the Isle of Wight, and to the top right hand side of the picture is the New Forest. So it's an area of forest. And if we look again, we've got the yellow dots, which are coastal. In this case, I've changed the scale a bit. So the yellow dots are coastal, and they are, as you can see, around the coast. The dark green dots are woodland, and you can see in the New Forest area, there's lots of dark green dots, which matches up. If you know the New Forest, it is not only woodland, but there's a lot of heathland there as well. And if you look at the area, there's lots of purpley dots, and that matches up with heathland. So that it all seems to fit quite nicely there. If you look in the area, the blue sort of rectangle, there are a lot of sort of white diamond or areas which match up with gardens and parks, and that area is Southampton, and down from Southampton is Portsmouth. So the whitish background is urban area, and the urban area often has, well, it is the area which has the gardens and parks, which is what you expect. So I mean, this is indicating that the locations are generally fairly accurate, but again, we've got a few of those annoying dots in the sea which shouldn't be there. So there's a few woodland ones which are sitting in the English Channel, which shouldn't necessarily be there. If we move on to the next one. Okay, so this in my view, this is the most important slide in the set. This is the use of iSpot open data in research papers. So the data from iSpot goes on to National Biodiversity Network, and from there on to GBIF, which is the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. And the top set of data there, 140,000, that's only been on there fairly recently, and it's already had 72 citations in scientific papers. The other data sets have been on there a lot longer, and they've got a lot more citations. So far, only quite a small chunk of the iSpot data is on GBIF, but already we've got a lot of citations. So a lot of people have used our data in writing scientific papers. I think we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think that's it.
And you take over. Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Mike. So we've explored the beginnings of iSpot, what iSpot does, what you can do with it, and we've looked at some of the data which Mike went through and the functionality. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what we contribute through research projects. Now, this is a very horrible slide, but it demonstrates some of the projects that we have been involved in through the Citizen Science and Artificial Intelligence Research Group. Some of them focus on iSpot and linked with iSpot. Others linked to another platform, which is part of the work that I manage called Treezilla. But what we're going to talk about here are two projects: Cost for Cloud, which is a European project, that was what we had, and Decide. So I'm just going to take you through those very quickly, and we can see how iSpot contributes through these types of initiatives. So Cost for Cloud was a European project that ran up to February 2022. Yes, 2022. Yeah, for 4 years, and the main aim of it was to see how we could map citizen science into the European Open Science Cloud through citizen observatories like iSpot. So the project involved 9 what we call COs, including iSpot. You can see the names of the ones that were involved, and they were involved in different areas. For example, so iSpot covered all biodiversity. PlantNet only dealt with plants. Naturasera dealt with all, and they were covering different regions and areas all across Europe, as well as Colombia. Canaria, which dealt with air pollution. So the main thing about it was that we were able to create a range of tools and resources, but not just create them, we're able to co-design them with our platform communities. And we got the iSpot community involved in that. And we're also able to integrate them into the platforms, demonstrate and test them. And so 13 different services were created. We're able to integrate 2 into iSpot, and we're quite happy to say that this allowed us to integrate AI, and we still have use of the PlantNet API in iSpot. The Fast Cloud one was a testing one, which has sort of been removed from the platform now, but it was quite successful in its time as well. But the key with this is that these are user-centered, they're innovative, and that we were able to contribute to this process of developing these tools, enabling citizen science to support things in this way across Europe. Now, the key thing about this also is that since then, the OU now has observer status in the European Open Science Cloud Association. And that's quite an important achievement in its time. So Costa Cloud contributed to this and another European project that also had alliances with citizen science called ESCAPE. So Decide was a slightly different project focused in the UK, funded through UKRI, and we collaborated with a range of partners that you can see here. And it was led by CEH, Center for Environmental Hydrology. And basically it was focused on targeting recording through adaptive sampling. So iSpot again was one of the platforms used where people could actually contribute through their recording. They contributed in the development of the tool because they were consulted through different processes, and then they were able to actually go out and do actual sampling and test this tool. And that was a really amazing way to co-develop this tool with the different communities, including the iSpot community. So what does all of this lead to? It or connects with it is the engagement. Engagement is really important in how iSpot operates. So we do this through the tools and the features that we just mentioned. We do this through the community, and particularly our expert community and the biological recording groups and societies that are part of us. They help us to not only make the identification of the agreements, but keep the community running, but we also engage with them as well. But we also have wider UK face-to-face engagement. This was more under the Opal initiative, less so now, but we do a little bit of that. And we do things with other universities and schools and so on. But we also do this quite importantly within the OU, and I'm going to talk about that shortly. But very quickly, in terms of publications, we have a wide impact in terms of the types of the types of things that we're linked to. So we're a partner of the UK State of Nature report, and that's really important. That comes out every couple of years and sort of looks at what is happening with nature across the UK. iSpot has been mentioned in various policy documents as a tool to enable that engagement with nature as well. And we are also doing different papers and so on, highlighting some of the things that Mike talked about and other areas as well. So what are we doing in teaching and learning? So as I said earlier, iSpot's main aim, of course, was to help people build their skills to learn. And through that, we've had lots of data coming out. But one of the key things we have been doing over the years as well is integrating into OU modules. So this is one example of a module that we've been involved in since 2014. And in S295, Biology of Survival, the students do 2 activities using iSpot. A BioBlitz, which is basically getting out there, counting different species at a set time on a particular day or whatever. And that's basically one of the activities they do. And they also do a study of pollination using iSpot. And the use of iSpot has been commended in terms of what the students get out of it, in terms of the benefit of this added bit to their learning, and that's been established. And we're now in discussions with the replacement for S295. It's in its currently in its last run at the moment. But the other thing which we managed to do a couple of years ago was to develop a bespoke course on Open Learn about citizen science and global biodiversity that features the use of iSpot. And that actually has been developed as a badged open course, and that's available for anybody to take. So what do? We know that iSpot helps people develop skills. And one of the things that we're trying to look at is also, does it really help people learn? And we did a little bit of analysis some years ago that showed that from about just over 400 observers, by the time they get to their 50th observation, they're able to sort of identify, and it shows a remarkable thing where through repetition and data and identification, people are learning and developing their skills, and that's been amazing to see that evolve over the years. So the impact, what have we been able to do? So as I said, iSpot will be 16 years old this year. It's been a lot to keep it going. Lots of changes, lots of adaptations, but it's still going, lots of collaborations. And over the years, we've had over 3 million user visits. The key thing here is the amount of data the information that's been created. So we have 1.8 million images, for example, over 43,000 species from over 180 countries. We have almost 900,000 observations, millions of identifications. And the key thing is the community. We have over 83,000 registered users. And what they do is they add identifications and they contribute to what iSpot is able to do. Over the years, we've been able to engage with people, over 150,000. As I mentioned, we have the schemes and societies who support, and we're used by thousands of other institutions, as well as our own OU students, and in different reports, and to have impact in different ways. So, almost to the wrap up now. So the thing about iSpot is that, as we mentioned, is that connection with the open research connection that also links with teaching, learning, and engagement. And this is how iSpot has been able to evolve and continue over the years, with some successes, challenges, yes, but some successes, as you can see, what we put forward today. So these are the core areas we think will actually we want to continue developing on and collaborating with others on in the future. So, for example, within the open research and data side is the developments of new innovation. We're really keen to do more and to look at more what we can do with the data classification, the analysis, and so on. We're also keen in terms of the learning design side. What more can we do to build interactivity as a social network? What new tools and features can we add in? What more can we contribute to teaching, education in terms of the resources and so on we create? And of course, to continue having wider impact. You've seen some of the examples of what we have done so far, but we do want to do more and continue in that space. So it's an open call. Is anybody out there interested in working with us? Do get in touch. The Citizen Science and Artificial Intelligence Research Group, we're a group that works across KMI and AAAS. And we have a number of different initiatives and so on, different projects that have been funded so far, but we're keen to develop more. So do get in touch and talk to us or raise a question now. Thank you.
That's great.